TV. Today we have a very special guest with us, Jason Kelley, GM, IBM Blockchain Services. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Cooper. Glad to be here and glad for all those listening in, wherever you are. As Cooper mentioned, I am the general manager of IBM's blockchain team, our services group globally, enjoying working with our clients collaboratively on every continent except one in 170 countries. Really enjoying being with you today and having the privilege to talk to you about something very important. In this case, it's our Sustainable Development Goal number 15, Life on Land. Now, bear with me for a moment as I read that to you directly. That's life on land. And the thought is that we want to be able to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems to sustainably manage forests, combat the desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. So that's life on land, SDG 15. Let me net it for you. We want to keep a healthy part of the earth on the planet. That's the terrestrial side. Now, as I say that healthy planet, it brings to mind something that we at IBM kicked off, which is now iconic, more than 12 years ago, which is we launched a Smarter Planet effort. That's the thought of coming together, bringing good tech into existing challenges, saying, how do we address this thought of a planet that must become smarter in order to become sustainable? Now, this thought of sustainability is also something that's not new. But now what we're seeing is the opportunity to make that part of everyday business, what consumers are now expecting. When they hear sustainability, they're thinking sustainability as a service. It just happens. It's just in there. What I'm buying, what I'm consuming is sustainable. And we think about life on land, we tend to think of what we extract from the land, whether it's what we're extracting for farming, what we're extracting in precious minerals. But this thought of a circular economy and being able to put that back and have a circular economy. How do we do all of this in farming or mining? And how do we do it in a responsible way, in a sustainable way? We must do it in a way that's more thoughtful. Using, this thought of putting smart to work, being more cognitive, being cognitive as individuals, as enterprises with cognitive enterprises, or even yet a cognitive planet. How do we do that? How do we put this thought and this augmented capability back in there? With good tech. With good tech based on data that delivers trust and transparency. So when we say we're being sustainable, we know we're being sustainable. Soon, we're going to be inundated with a much larger population. Estimates say that by 2050, we'll have 9.7 billion people on the face of this planet. Already, we're dealing with a very challenged food ecosystem. When we think of farming, things that life on land starts with life, and we all eat. So how will we sustain this? Now, I've mentioned farming and mining. I'm going to stick with those two as examples to talk about this life on land. And right now, what I want to do is point towards Yara International, company that we worked with, as they thought about adding good tech in the form of blockchain, IoT, the Internet of Things, as well as AI, to make this thought of sustainable farming, of extracting value while also returning value to the system. So let's take a moment and listen to Yara International.
In past years, Yara has given chosen female farming groups in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana the training and crop nutrition needed to give the women the best yields from their fields, enabling them to better support their families and communities. This year, in Kenya, we did something slightly different. Climate change is a scary reality for all farmers. Greater support is needed to help them plan their farming activities. The rains no longer come at the same time as they used to, and every year the season seems to get shorter. Last year, in Kenya, many farmers proceeded to plant their crops as usual, hoping for rains to come. But the rains did not come, and many lost their crops, their primary source of food. So, in 2019, Yara launched Farm Weather, a smartphone app that helps farmers plan their activities according to a hyperlocal weather forecast. But what of those farmers who do not own smartphones? Those who are feeling the effects of the delayed rains with only the weather forecast for the nearest town as reference. These are the farmers that Yara's gift was given to. 50 influential female farmers from the Maasai tribe of Narusura who are working together to feed their communities while their men go in search of greener pastures for their herds of animals. As Yara, we wanted these women to be equipped to plan their next crop season to the best of their ability. The gift included seeds, crop protection, Yara's crop nutrition. They were given smartphones loaded with farm weather and were taught how to use the app, giving them the knowledge needed to use the gift to its full potential. Lastly, they were also given solar panels installed on their roofs with phone chargers and 2 lights, giving each home electricity for the first time. By helping these 50 women, we have made a difference not only to them, but to their families and surrounding communities. We are proud supporters of female farmers.
So as you see, as I said, Yara International taking a very thoughtful, a very cognitive approach to not just extracting value from the land, but with this thought of life on land, returning that value back. They're looking at the ways to pull data from the background to the foreground. And that's something that we've all now experienced in the current environment with a health crisis around the globe. We sat back and thought of a supply chain that we assumed was flexible, but we understand now it's very brittle. Very brittle because some of the data and trust that we thought was in the system, in the background, has now come to the foreground. And it's not just that technology was back there and we can still execute business, but now we have to do both, technology with business, a hybrid approach to addressing not just a supply chain, but a value chain in life on land. Now, we think about that value chain, that's a value chain that we're either taking value from or returning value to. And we know that that value doesn't just happen in that value chain or that supply chain, going from one step to the next, from source to consumer. But that value is really measured at the end user, the consumer. That's you, that's me, that's us as consumers. And as we look at this, we want to know that what we're purchasing has value. Now, we know from many studies now that 72% of consumers will pay more, a premium, if those goods or services that they're purchasing match their values, which in this case is sustainability. So they're ready to pay more to get that increased value, knowing that they are helping to promote life on land. They're ready to do that if and when they know that what they've purchased is in fact truly sustainable. Now we know, and sometimes we laugh, and you may have heard this statistic before, or this fact, that every year there's more organic food produced, or actually flip that, more organic food that is consumed than is produced. Think about that. More consumed than is produced. So should we trust it when that label says it's organic? This gets back to this thought of trusted data. Being able to have trust across that value chain and see with certainty that the source is the source of that good or service, and as it was sourced, it is in fact sustainable. And as it goes through that supply chain, the provenance, meaning from the beginning to end, is true. And the identity of that good is true. Now, with that being the word of the moment, trust, I am going to drill in on one technology, one capability, and that's blockchain. And I'll do that not just because I lead the blockchain services group for IBM, but I'm doing that because blockchain has become the new operating system for trust, because it gives visibility and transparency of that data that used to be in the background, and it pulls it to the foreground. It mixes this thought of technology and business process in this hybrid environment, knowing that now, as we look at life on land, we have a chance to ensure that this value chain is returning value to the consumers while also delivering value in what they consume. And as you saw in the first example with Yara, coffee was focused on, and again, it'll be a coffee centered thought. So enjoy some coffee as I do. And let's take a look at what outcomes we're getting with Farmer Connect as we infuse the capability of blockchain with this thought of life on land in farming.
I think it all starts from the smell. Opening up a bag of coffee and getting that first whiff. You're intrigued, you want to understand it, and once you start on that journey, you can travel the world through your cup of coffee.
Coffee is in my blood. I'm the 5th generation in my family who is a coffee farmer. My grandfather always told me that coffee, it's not only a business, it's a social activity. We have hundreds of people that depend on us.
For me, the future of coffee is traceability. Traceability means having the visibility to know, was this coffee sourced in a responsible and sustainable way? In many producing countries, the price of coffee today is below their cost of production. And I think as consumers, we want farmers to be taking care of the environment. But if they don't have economic viability, it's impossible to ask them to do those things.
Our work here is sustainable. Our farm is sustainable. But I don't know if our work is really seen around the world. With blockchain, our consumers can see that we are sustainable.
We're able to take data from the blockchain and show the consumer the journey that their coffee has taken, and they're actually able to make a contribution to the farmer or to the farmers' communities. Farmer Connect is an industry-driven initiative that's using technology like digital identity and blockchain to drive digital connectivity from the farm to the consumer.
The coffee industry is a very complex ecosystem. You have the farmers, you have processors, you have exporters, importers, roasters, and then the consumers. Farmer Connect connects all the players with the right information in every step of the value chain.
When I was trying to pick a technology partner, I wanted somebody who was truly committed to blockchain. IBM Food Trust was one of the inspirations for the work that they were doing with supermarkets and being able to have instant recalls. Food Trust had already been proven, so it accelerated the speed at which we could get to a production blockchain. At the same time, knowing that we have IBM behind us, the support of the predominant company in blockchain allows us to engage consumers in a more meaningful way, and they know that their data truly is going to be secure.
The world is changing. The only way we can continue is by getting the support of the industry.
We have a unique opportunity to provide to the consumer a new, enriching experience, which is going to grow the entire coffee market and benefit everybody. That's where the real power of blockchain becomes unlocked.
So there we have it. Another wonderful story about coffee, and in this case, Farmer Connect, where the trust in the value chain is being returned through trust and transparency of data. Data that's not just in the background, but is being pulled forward into the foreground, mixing this thought of tech and business. Tech for good, for life on land. Now, thus far, we've watched 2 clients, looked at 2 ecosystems, and we focused on farming. And I've mentioned farming and then also mining, I called out, because it's this thought of extracting value from the land. and also returning that value. When we think of mining, people tend to just think of extraction. Well, I want to call an example, not just on mining, but tying mining to that entire ecosystem, from the mine all the way to where it's consumed by a consumer. Right now, wherever you are watching this, somewhere either on your person or within close proximity, there's a smart device or electronic device with a battery. Now, it could be a battery in a phone or in your computer. And as we know, many of our now green vehicles have batteries as well. And hopefully you're not watching this while in your green vehicle with a battery. But these batteries operate on a precious material called cobalt. And that cobalt's extracted. We want to make sure that that cobalt, that when it's extracted, is extracted responsibly. And not only is it extracted responsibly, but that it's used very efficiently through that process, from the mining to the refining to the productization, manufacturing, distribution to your electronic devices. How do we know that's happening? How do we know that that cobalt is being sourced properly, is being used properly, and even on the back end can be returned for recycle or reuse properly? Again, think of these trusted transactions in what used to be called a supply chain, but now is a value chain, because this isn't just mining, because what I've just described is going across multiple industries, from heavy industrial and mining into travel and transportation as we get that to the source, the manufacture of it, as well as into the consumer industry, whether it is consumer electronics or if it's consumer vehicles, where we all consume that if it's an electric vehicle. How do we follow that process? How do we go from one step to the next? Now, something we love to say about blockchain, as you heard in Farmer Connect, it does take an ecosystem. And what you're seeing now is not just an ecosystem within one industry, but cross industry. So blockchain is truly a team sport. So let's think about what I've just said, this thought of mining all the way through to the consumer. And let's listen in to what's happening right now with something that's called the Responsible Sourcing Blockchain Network, an ecosystem of players responsibly sourcing minerals from the land and taking it to the consumers with the sustainable thought of life on land.
Can blockchain pave the way for ethical cobalt? Cobalt is a core ingredient in lithium-ion batteries. The mineral helps power smartphones, laptops, and electric cars. It's estimated that demand for cobalt will multiply 8-fold by 2026. That's not surprising, considering 20 pounds of cobalt are needed to power just one electric car. The Democratic Republic of Congo is the world's largest producer of cobalt. Much of the cobalt in the DRC is sourced from artisanal mining operations, where it's difficult to track whether international standards are being followed. So how can industries be sure that the cobalt used in rechargeable batteries is sourced responsibly? Yes, companies can source from safer, large-scale industrial mines, but it's not perfect, since cobalt is regularly combined with metals from a variety of sources. IBM is developing an ethical sourcing solution in partnership with Ford Motor Company, LG Chem, and RCS Global. The goal is to establish an industry-wide platform for all supply chain participants. Companies will have end-to-end visibility into origin and progress of cobalt through the supply chain.
The most exciting thing and what gets me up in the morning is the knowledge that as a business, we can have positive impacts around the world through the promotion of responsible sourcing with our customers worldwide.
With blockchain, transparency and traceability will be possible across the global mineral supply. Here's how it works. RCS Global certifies the cobalt in the Congo. Once the metal is produced, it's then tracked through the supply chain as it travels to LG Chem's cathode and battery plant in South Korea, and finally to a Ford plant in the United States. All privileged network participants can view the supply chain in real time on the IBM blockchain platform. This initial solution is expected to expand, tracing the origins of other conflict minerals like tantalum, tin, and tungsten, which are used in jewelry, electronics, and other manufactured products.
So you've just heard from the Responsible Sourcing Blockchain Network. And it falls right in line with what we've been talking about, whether it's Farmer Connect, whether it's work that we're doing with Yara International. The thought of maintaining and sustaining life on land. Sustainability goal and objective number 15. Knowing that we have to take care of each other as we take care of the land, as we take care of getting the value that we extract from the land, but also return that. And that thought of the circular economy is exactly what we're addressing here. I'll close where I started with the thought that this isn't a new way to think, but we are applying new ways to think about it, and better yet, even ways to execute on sustainability. In 2008, we launched our iconic Smarter Planet effort. And now, as we move forward and think of this cognitive planet of life on land, SDG number 15, we've seen some examples here of how that works, of pulling data from the background to the foreground, getting better understanding of how that data and business drives trust and transparency, and ensuring that in that hybrid environment of hybrid business, hybrid technology, and hybrid outcomes of good business, good tech, good sustainability, and profitable outcomes all make sense. So as you go forward, thanks for taking time with me to talk through SDG number 15, and for taking time to think about some wonderful technologies like IBM blockchain, as well as IoT and AI in context of true business outcomes, not just tech for tech's sake, but tech for good, driving good business. Again, I'm Jason Kelley, the Global General Manager for IBM Blockchain Services, and I've enjoyed our time together. All the best.